Hello, 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 hello. Good morning, everyone, or good evening here. I'm Jack Bayadu. I'm also known as the Hood Sommelier. It's Friday. It's a long week. It's Friday. We are here. If you're here, thank you so much for being here. Would love you to follow, interact, be in a comment. I often say it's not always that when I see a whiskey come on the market, I wonder what is this whiskey about. But when Impex Beverage bring a whiskey on the market, I always have to check it out. Sam is someone I really respect, and when he choose a whiskey to import to the U.S. for me, that whiskey has to have a story, has to have something so interesting and intriguing that he brings it on the market. So when I heard about the Isle of Raasay, and right here, I'm gonna show you guys more about it. I was like, I need to know about it, and I really want to know more about it. And I actually was lucky for the first time. I can actually say I met our guest before I invited him in last year. I met him in September at the Whiskey London, at the Whiskey Fest London, and he was just such a great guy. Like you'd think we've been friends forever, just so welcoming and explaining to people. And I say, I have to have you on the show. And since then, we've reconnected, we've talked, and I say, Alistair, you are coming on the show, but I brought him in because Alistair, he has a long and hefty resume. But right now, as far as the Isle of Raasay is concerned, Alistair is the master distiller. He is the voice of Isle of Raasay all around the world. Is if you are in the US this year, keep an eye open. You'll see him somewhere in the city. From what I heard, he may be in Texas. So for people in Texas, watch out for it. But the goal of my show is always to tell the people's story, tell the brand story, and hopefully next time you're picking up a bottle, you know a little more about it, and it's just not, hey, which type of bottle is this and who is bringing this bottle on. You know the real story behind the whiskey. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring in the man, the myth, the legend himself behind the brand, Mr. Alistair Day. Alistair, welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing? It's a real pleasure to be on the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a pleasure to having you on because, like I said, you are probably one of the most genuine people I know. When I met first, you didn't care who I was or what. You just talked to me, and I'm like, I know you for I know the brand. I know you. You're like, hey, and I said, I really love to talk to you. You say whenever you give me your card, you say whenever you want to talk. So I appreciate you being so welcoming. It says a lot about what you represent. So for people that don't know you, who are you? Who is Alistair, and what do you do in the Isle of Raasay?
I'm the co-founder and master distiller of Isle of Raasay Distillery, and we started distilling on the Isle of Raasay in 2017. So we're still a pretty new distillery. Those people who don't know, the Isle of Raasay is a very small island in the Hebrides of Scotland. We're just off the east coast of Skye, so that's we're the home to a very well-known distillery called Talisker. So we're just off the east coast of that. 25-minute ferry from Skye to Isle of Raasay. And when I say small, Raasay's 14 miles long. It's 3 miles wide. It's about the same size and shape as Manhattan.
Wow.
But at the 2011 census, there was 161 people lived on Raasay. So yeah, that kind of puts it into perspective. It's a small place. There's about 2,000 sheep, of course, but 161.
The sheeps are important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, tell us a little bit about your resume. What got you into whiskey, and how long have you
Yeah.
been doing this?
So I can trace my family connection to whiskey back to 1820 and a company called G&A Davison. So they were whiskey blenders, licensed grocers and brewers in a very small town called Coldstream in the Scottish borders. So right on the River Tweed, which is the border between Scotland and England. And my great-grandfather left school in 1895 and joined that business as an office boy. And then by 1923, he had taken over the business. So he was running a licensed grocer shop in the whiskey business, and he was a director of the Coldstream Brewery. And I guess, unfortunately for me, he retired after the Second World War, and that was kind of the end of that business. So if you skip forward to 2009, I inherited my great-grandfather's cellar book. So that book has got all of the recipes for all of the blends they produced from 1899 to 1916. So in 2009, I decided to recreate one of the blended whiskies from the book, and it was called the Tweed Ale. And that's really how I got into whiskey, by recreating that blend, and that went on sale in 2010. And that's really that's how I got started in whiskey. And then after a few years of doing that, things get quite difficult in the whiskey industry. So I was buying casks of fully mature whiskey and blending them together, and it got harder and harder to get really good quality aged whiskey in casks. So I thought, right, I need to think of a plan here, and so I wrote a business plan to buy new make and buy casks and age it on. And when I looked at how much money, how much investment we needed to do that, it's just dawned on me that I could actually build a small distillery for that amount of money. So I then kind of pivoted, wrote a business plan for distillery, and got a very long story short, that's how I met Bill Dobby. So Bill Dobby's my business partner and the investor in the business, and Bill and I set up the company R&B Distillers in July 2014 with a view to building the distillery on Raasay. So that's really how it all started.
I mean, I always tell people, sometimes you just have to build it, right? You will build it, and they will come,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Because you could, for most people, you could decide to just I mean, there's nothing wrong with buying new make and aging it. We need those blenders and bonders and whatnot. But sometimes when you build it, you make it the way you intended it to be, especially because you want to retain your grandfather's legacy and how you want to see things. So I can appreciate that. So distillery get built with your partner, and what type of whiskey you decide to make at that time? Are you thinking we're gonna do 100% single malt, grain whiskey? What do you decide to make?
that's exactly how we set out. So if you imagine, I was kind of privileged enough to be given a blank sheet of paper to design the whiskey we wanted to make, but also to design the process to make that whiskey. So we started by going, well, what is this whiskey going to be? And as I say, Raasay is a Hebridean island, so we wanted to make a Hebridean whiskey. And at the time, obviously you've got Islay, which is really well known Hebridean island with lots of very distinctive whiskies on there. So we knew we weren't going to try and make an Islay style single malt. So we looked at some of the other Hebridean distilleries there at the time. So you had Jura, Talisker, Tobermory, and we kind of looked at the styles that they were making, and that kind of really led me to the idea of making a lightly peated whiskey. So we knew we weren't going to make it heavily peated, but we wanted to be lightly peated with that kind of smoke that sort of draws the sort of influence of the islands. And then for the other elements, it was a bit harder. So we're kind of looking at other distilleries out there, and I guess when you think of fruit flavors in single malt Scotch whisky, you tend to think apples and pears and maybe banana, a little bit tropical fruit. But at the time, there was a lot of people talking about Old Burmore whiskies, and they had this really kind of dark fruit, almost black, kind of black currant, black cherry kind of elements to it. So we kind of settled on, right, we're going to make a lightly peated single malt with dark fruit flavors, and so then we set about to create a process that would be able to make that single malt. And once we designed the process, we gave that to our architect, and the architect designed the building that went around the process. So very much like from a blank sheet of paper.
So from the beginning, immediately you already knew that light peated whiskey is what you wanted to make.
Yeah, yeah, and to try and create these dark fruit flavors as well.
So didn't you feel like you maybe was kind of becoming a little more particular, like excluding maybe some drinkers that like, because I always often say that peat is the biggest divider in whiskey, right? It's either
Absolutely.
I like it or I hate it. There, you'll never find somebody who say I dabble with peat. I like peat on Tuesday, but not on Wednesday. It's usually very, very extreme when it comes to peat. So why that, right? Why that? Why go peated, or is it more of your own conviction on what you believe will be the best thing on the market?
Yeah, so I mean, it was very much because of our location and where we were, and I think as an island distillery, it kind of made sense to have that peat element there. But as I say, we went lightly peated, and just to explain that, what we actually do is we do 6 months of heavily peated malted barley, and we do 6 months of plain malt unpeated malted barley. And one of the reasons we do that is we knew we were going to release whiskey at a young age, so we kind of thought, well, how do you make an excellent whiskey at a young age? And for me, an excellent whiskey has to have complexity, depth, and balance. And so to create some of the complexity, that's why we do 6 months of peated and 6 months of unpeated. And that's all matured separately. And then we use 3 different cask types. So we use ex-rye cask, Jinkaman oak, and ex-Bordeaux red wine. So you've got unpeated in those 3 casks and peated in those 3 casks, and that's all matured separately. It's only when we bring that together after maturation and vat it, and that hopefully creates the complexity and the depth that we're looking for. And then lastly, and most importantly, is the balance and balancing all of those elements together.
So one of the questions that came about is does the peat that you use come from the island or outside of the island?
So our peat comes from the Highlands, so it comes from Aberdeenshire, and it's malted in Angus, which is just south of Aberdeenshire. So that's on the east coast of Scotland, and it comes over from there. We have grown barley on Raasay itself, so we did barley trials in 2017, 2018, 2019, and for that we used a small amount of Raasay peat to malt that barley. But to put it into perspective, after 3 years of these variety trials, we have 9 casks of 100% Raasay whiskey. So it's a very, very small amount, but it allowed us to find the varieties that will go from Raasay, because it can be pretty wet in Raasay. So we've only got from May till August as a growing season. And if you think of the commercial varieties, they're kind of planted in March and harvested in October. So the commercial varieties would grow on Raasay, but they don't ripen. So we had to identify these.
So the weather
varieties.
is already a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that being an island. But now, if you had to, I'm getting a little thirsty. So if you had to introduce me to Raasay as a what do you call it, as a spirit, where do we start? What would be your introduction to me to say, hey, have this first so we can start a conversation?
So I think we should start with the dram. The dram is our signature single malt. It's what Isle of Raasay whiskey is all about. And as I say, we can then talk about this kind of 6 cask recipe that I mentioned.
Okay, absolutely. So the dram. Let me see. That's what I have in front of me. I think I have the lightly peated.
Nice.
Yeah, so the lightly peated.
46.4% ABV. And it's got the little 6 cask icon.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that is the one. 46.4.
That's us. Yeah.
46.4%, the dram. And for people that wondering what the dram looks like, I actually have a picture of it. Let me see. Is it that one? Yeah, the dram.
Like it?
So this
Yeah.
this is what the dram look like. Um, for all of you guys watching right now, this what we'll be trying. So tell me a little bit about the dram as we are. And there is also a question that came about where the origin of your yeast as well, and where is that from? Which side of what where do you provide or get your yeast from? We got
Yeah.
some serious whiskey nerds
Yeah.
in my following, so they love those details.
Yeah. So we predominantly use a distiller's yeast. It's got a not very exciting name. It's just called MW. It works really well for us. We do 3 and 5 day fermentations. So that we've got relatively long fermentations, and particularly the 5 day fermentations. That's because we're trying to get into the dark fruit. But we've also used some champagne yeast as well. So the champagne yeast brings more of those dark fruit flavors that we're looking for, and it was originally developed for champagne, but it's also used for tequila and mezcal, so
Okay,
the white spirits. But it brings these more kind of dark fruit elements that we're looking for in our whiskey.
absolutely.
So this is about round about 6 parts per million phenol in the glass.
Okay,
But as I say, that's because it's made our heavily peated barley that comes in between 48 and 52 parts per million
mhm,
phenols in the barley, but we take quite a narrow cut. So on peated, we come on about 72% ABV, and then we cut down to 65. And when we're on unpeated malted barley, we go on at 72, but we cut at 67. So they're quite narrow cuts, and that also is how we get to the lightly peated element.
the also let's highlight um, the shape of the bottle. This is a magnificent bottle, by the way. It feel like this bottle reminds me of if something was chiseled out of a rock, and it's like those. It takes me back. I'm a magical beast Harry Potter fan. So if you were on a quest and you had
Yeah,
to find your elixir of joy, and something needed to be chiseled out of a rock, a magic rock, you're gonna pull this elixir of life out of it. And this is what the bottle remind me of. Like, don't be surprised if you get approached by a show to use your bottle as one of those, because it feels so movie-esque.
yeah.
It's very movie. So what was it, deliberate, or was it like that's the only choice we had?
No, no, it's absolutely deliberate. So we do everything on Raasay. So we've got our own well on site. So that water is used for mashing fermentation. It's used for cooling. It's used for cask reduction, usually for reduction to bottling strength. We do all the maturation on Raasay as well. So we really kind of wanted to talk about the water in the well and the minerality of that water. So where the distillery is, it's built on Jurassic sandstones. It's a really old rock from the Jurassic period. Its sandstone is permeable, so it's like a big sponge. But everything around us, everything else around us is old volcanic rock. So we have granite and basalt. And, as I said, it rains a lot in Raasay. When it rains, the water runs off the volcanic rocks and collects all the minerals and ends up below the distillery. So it brings a lot of minerality to our whiskey. But also, one of those minerals in particular is manganese, and manganese around about 300-400 parts per million really helps the yeast development, really helps the fermentation. So we kind of wanted to encapsulate that in the bottle. So when we were working with the designers, they sent us some modeling clay, and we pushed the modeling clay into the rock. So all of this texture you see on the glass is from that rock. And then we have this little fossil here. So on the east side of the island, in the
I
sandstone, you have
I will show
fossils.
that to y'all. It literally is this fossil right here.
Yeah, that's it. So that was pushed into the modelling clay as well, and then the mould for the bottle was made from that. So, so hopefully when you're holding the bottle, you're holding a little bit of Raasay in your hand.
I love the intentionality. Our nerd is on a thing. They wanted to know: are you using the peat to enhance the complexity, or are you stitching it all together when you actually are having those different peated whiskey in different,
Yeah, so it's very much, yeah, as you say, it's very much to create the complexity. So having an unpeated spirit and a peated spirit, and by having 3-day fermentations and 5-day fermentations, all of these create different layers of complexity. And then we have a number of different things that can be off and on in the distillery. So, for example, we have stainless steel washbacks, but they have cooling jackets on them. So we have a little bit of control over the fermentation. So what we tend to do is we can stop the fermentation at 32 degrees C. And basically, the higher the fermentation temperature, the more fusel oils, the more higher alcohols you get. And that gives a much more viscous, much more oily mouthfeel to the spirit. So by having that off or on, we can have a slightly lighter wash or a slightly heavier, oilier wash. And then on the wash still, on the line arm of the wash still, we've got another cooling jacket. Now that's always on, but we've got a collection pot after that goes back into the still and a hand valve that can be opened or closed. So by opening the hand valve, again, we can create a more heavier low wines, and by having it closed, we create a lighter low wine. So we've got that can be off or on, and then next to the spirit still, we've got a little purifier. It's got 6 copper plates in it, and if we open that valve, there's a valve before the condenser, we can divert it through that, and we get a much lighter spirit. It kind of focuses on the kind of blackcurrant dark fruit element of it, and that also means that you can get up to 80% alcohol in one pass. So if you imagine there's 3 different things that can be off or on, you can have them all off, all on, or you can have combinations, and then you've got peated and unpeated. So we're probably making about 6, 7 different types of new make spirit, and then maturing that in 3 different cask types as well. So a lot of the complexity obviously comes from those 3 different casks.
Absolutely. No, so let's talk about cask. So you're making this light peated whiskey. I'm looking in the bottle here, and I'm seeing 6 different casks of the peated and unpeated version. So the dram, which cask are you maturing? Which type of cask are you using, and how is the blending coming together?
Yeah, so we use ex-rye casks, which come from the States. We use rye over bourbon, so they're North American oak.
That's what I'm about to say. Why rye and not bourbon?
Why rye? Yeah. So again, it's back to this complexity. So because it's Quercus alba, North American white oak, you get the classic vanilla butterscotch flavors from the cask. But because it's had rye whiskey in it before, you also get this really spicy black pepper note as well. So it just adds another layer, another element into it. So that's why we use rye casks. And then the second cask type we use is Quercus muhlenbergi, so it's North American white oak. It's more commonly referred to as chinkapin oak. And these are fresh casks. They've not had any previous contents in them. They're made to our specifications, so the timber is air dried for 36 months before the casks are made, and then we specify a high toast and a high char. So the longer air drying, the longer you air dry, the more the lignins in the oak break down. So if you were to take the dry matter of oak, 52% of that dry matter is lignin. So it's a big part of what makes oak strong. But when it breaks down, when it degrades, it becomes volatile phenols. And those volatile phenols, through maturation, through time, will come back into the whiskey. So when we make a peated new make spirit, as soon as you have the phenols, they start to break down. So by doing the longer air drying, we eventually get those coming back from the cask. And then the high toast, so it caramelizes the natural sugar, the semi-hellulose in the oak. So you get those caramel flavors. But the toasting, the longer, higher toasting also breaks the lignins down as well. So that's why we do high toast. And then the high char obviously increases the surface area of the cask, but the charcoal itself removes a lot of impurity from our spirit. So with bottling at a younger age, that charring is really important. And the Chinkapin oak brings a lot more richness. It's more rounded and it's more of those dark fruit flavours compared to Quercus alba. And then the third cask type we use is Sex Bordeaux red wine. So these are chateaus.
Which is also a bold choice when it comes to taste.
Yeah, I mean, and we work with chateaus in the left bank, so they're predominantly Cabernet Sauvignon, so they're very high tannin red wines. You know, the wine itself takes a long time to mature, and the casks are used for 3 vintages of red wine before we get them. Now, these are obviously French oak, so a mixture of Quercus Patria and Quercus Robin, and these oak varieties from France are much more savoury spices. So particularly Quercus Patria has a lot of eugenol, so you get a lot of these cloves and savoury spices coming from the cask. Right. So we want the fruit, the dark fruit from the grapes, from the wine, but we want to balance that with these savoury spices. So you can see 3 very different cask types. Peated spirit works very differently with those 3 cask types compared to the unpeated, and that's all matured a minimum of 3 years. So the whiskey we're drinking is kind of like 4 or 5 years old.
That I was about to say, that was the next question. Professionals on LinkedIn are asking how long the spirit is in the cask.
There you go.
So that was my next question. So thank you for asking that question. Is what's the maturation process here?
Yeah, so we're between 3 and 5 years. So we obviously the dram is no age statement on it. If you want to know, you can go onto our website. When you go to the dram and you look at it, it's got release facts, and if you go into release facts, it tells you the when it was distilled, when the casks were filled, when the casks were emptied, what the bottling date is, so you can see exactly the mixture. It also tells you the split of rye, Chinkapin, and Bordeaux. So we're about 60% rye cask, about 25% Chinkapin, and about 15 red wine, give or take.
And I can tell you right now, anybody that loves spirit, understands spirits right now, and actually love peated whiskey is agreeing in the comment that when it comes to, I don't think I know any distillery that is making lightly peated whiskey, just lightly peated whiskey, but going straight for that complexity already at the beginning, at the base of the spirit, with so many bold flavors that that are there. It's like serious bold flavors that we're seeing. You went, instead of bourbon, you went rye. Instead of choosing regular oak or virgin oak, or I like to call it the easy route where you choose French oak, right? You went, no, we want Chinkapin. And to finish, you're like, instead of choosing sherry, which is the easy way out for most people, you're like, no, we're going French Bordeaux. So I mean, a good friend of mine and I will always have what he call peated night, and the way we do that is usually is we everybody will bring 3 bottles of peated whiskey to impress the other friend, because we both love peat. So if we usually walk in his basement, it smell like a peat bug, like it's peat everywhere, but we just love it because we don't get a chance to enjoy peated whiskey often, because not everybody enjoy it, but we both enjoy it so much. So when we opening the Bruichladdich or the Talisker and all those, Raasay is literally one of those that is not taking over this room right now, but the flavor, the taste notes are poignant, almost annoyingly poignant, because they stay on your tongue for so long. And I'm loving it because it tells me what you're actually doing, the intentionality in the flavors that you're pushing. So if you love peated whiskey, I will tell you that if you love peated whiskey and you have not tried, I'm gonna put it again. I'm gonna display it so you see the bottle and you recognize it. If you have not tried this bottle, you're not in the peat club. The people in the peat club know about this. You are not in. You need to actually chase this bottle to make sure you have it because there's those days where you don't want the heavy peated. You just want something that have nice fruity thing, and you also want something you can make a peated highball with, and it has those flavors. For between 3 and 5 years old, I'm very very intrigued by the flavor profile. So before we get to the next expression, there is a few questions that came by. First question is, does the specific cast that you've chosen, is it because of the age? Do you choose those casks specifically because you know you are releasing younger whiskey, or is it no matter what will happen in the future, those are the casks that you'll be using?
Yeah, so I think we've chosen these casks, and so initially, absolutely, because we knew we wanted to release whiskey at a younger age, so we had to have more active casks, and as you say, you have to create these bold flavors and then carefully marry them all together. But it's also a long-term recipe, so that when we empty the casks, we refill them, and we mature them on, and they'll take longer to mature, and it's always our intention to try and continue to mature stock for 10 plus years. So what it allows us to do, having 6 different casks, we can flex that recipe. So we can up the rye or the red wine, or we can reduce the chinkapin. Just what we want to do, if you imagine the dram, we want to have a band,
A
so that when
progression,
you
yeah,
every time you buy the dram, every time you buy Isle of Raasay single malt, you know it's Isle of Raasay, but it's within a band,
correct.
and it will do that, and it just allows us to flex that. And by the same token, as our whiskey gets older, so our cask in the distillery will be 8 years old in September. The
Right.
oldest cask we have be 8 years old. So that's the oldest stock we've got will be 8 years old at the end of this year. So it takes time to build that up. And as I say, as we empty casks, we'll refill them, and it'll take longer for that to mature.
The next question is, do you reuse the cask?
Yeah, we,
which is
we do.
which is a simple question apropos, but some people don't know, right? They
Yeah.
just don't know if those casks being reused or not. Unlike bourbon, I can answer that yes, most single malt casks are reused.
And I think it's an important part of our recipe is that we were probably refilling about half of the casks we use each year are being refilled from ones that we've emptied. And if you think about the chinkapin casks in particular, so people talk about first fill, second fill, third fill, refill, whatever. So the rye and the Bordeaux are first fill casks, so they become second fill when we reuse them, but the chinkapin casks actually become first fill when we refill them. So we've got quite a long period of time of active casks. So even refilling them, we've got quite a lot of bold flavour still coming.
So I wanna talk about the other expression
Yeah,
that you have. So I'm looking at certain expression as far as, I'm assuming that I saw on the website that you guys have kind of a tasting kit
yeah,
test. So as I'm seeing here, it's almost like a decomposition of the dram, right?
yeah,
It
yeah,
is when you have the peated and unpeated version of each one of your your whiskey. So I want to go through and kind of see. It's kind of a cool thing to buy as a person, because you can see if you've had the dram, right? You're like, oh, I wonder what are all the whiskey that are part of it, and for me, it's kind of cool. Uh, so the Bordeaux cask,
yeah.
you guys are have an unpeated version of
Right, yeah, yeah. So every what we've done is we've started a kind of series. We talk about Nicaea. So in Gaelic, Nicaea means the six. So what we did last year is we bottled all of the 6 components of the dram as Nicaea 5 years young. So the intention is that next year we'll do Nicaea, but it'll be 7 years evolved, and then 2 years after that it'll be 9 years old. 9 years matured, and then 11 years it'll be 11 years old. So it's a kind of journey that we're going on, so you can follow all the different components, all 6 different components, and you can see how they change with age as well. But yeah, so we've got the ex Bordeaux, unpeated ex Bordeaux. So by tasting these, you can actually, exactly as you said, you can deconstruct the dram.
Deconstruct a little bit what you have. This is the ex Bordeaux, and then you have the 5 year peated Chicopin one, right? Which is here. Then obviously you have the unpeated X, because the X rye also unpeated single cask, and obviously this is the cask strength of your
So these are they're single cask bottlings. So there's a single cask strength version of each of, and I find it fascinating because you can see straight away the color difference. So the lighter one there's the rye, and the other one is the kind of rusty or tumble.
Even the Bordeaux give you a little more of that red kind of ish color when you take a look at it. And I think my one now that I want to try is your 5 year Chicopin, because for me, I'm very curious to know, what does peated whiskey in Chicopin cask taste like? So this is for my own curiosity, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize, but this is my 100% own curiosity, because I've seen bourbon age in Chicopin oak, and it wasn't really my favorite then. Okay. And beside that, I've never seen single malt. I've never had single malt age in Chicopin. So this is gonna be my trial to see.
So this is fully matured in Chicopin oak, so not a finish. It's the spirit that's been in this cask for 5 years, and it's our peated. So the way the peated, it's really interesting how the peated works with Chicopin. So the little bit muted on the nose. You don't really get too much of that kind of wood smoke on the nose.
No, you're not. You're getting it's very, actually, surprisingly quite fruity.
And that's why we use the Chicopin. It provides that kind of rich fruit note, but quite different when you taste it. So you're much more into the kind of barbecue flavors when you taste it. There's maple syrup in there as well. There's maybe even some pancakes. There might even be some bacon in there as well.
Dude, this is dessert. This is dessert. This is dessert in a glass.
It's kind of barbecue maple syrup. Yeah,
just a little bit of those ginger note at the end. A little bit of that ginger at the end, but this is dessert in a glass. Chicopin and peated whiskey. I've never put that together ever.
Quite special, isn't it? And that's the kind of this is the glue that holds the dram together. This is that middle bit, between the rye and the bourbon, that just brings it all together and adds the richness. And as you say, they've got that real. For me, it's maple syrup, but it's got that real.
It is 100% desserty. It reminds me of having flan cake with the syrup on top. That's it's with a little bit of cinnamon toast, just a toast of cinnamon on top of it. Oh my God. I want this in a bottle. I want this own bottle, because this right here is phenomenal. I love this. This, as a peated whiskey person, there is peated whiskeys that I have, and I go, okay, let me sit down and relax. This is, I'm going to relax for. I'm gonna sit down and relax. It's fin. Chicopin oak. Who knew that was the secret?
There you go.
Who knew that was the secret to produce high, beautiful quality peated whiskey?
Yeah, it's really,
Congratulations,
really.
because this truly is something special that you are bringing on the market. It is truly special. This is one of a kind, and for me, I get excited on my show when I taste something that is truly a one of a kind, because whiskey can become quite boring. Whiskey can be very, French people say laissez-faire. Everything
Mm,
happens. But
yeah.
when someone really put intention and say, hey, I'm going to choose something different, I'm going to put something different, I get excited. And this Chickapin Oak, this is the highlight of the show so far for me.
Well,
And because I was wondering where the sweet notes were coming from. It's not the rye, it's not, but the sweet notes were coming from this Chickapin Oak, who bring that. I haven't tried the Bordeaux, but when I'm thinking, I thought, I'm like, it's not from the rye. That's probably the spice. But this right here, this is it. This is it.
well, the really good news is we're doing a 7-year-old. We'll be doing a 7-year-old version of the next year. So there'll be. If you look out for the Nicaea 7 years evolved, there'll be a peated chinkapin in amongst that.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. So we actually have someone that is he said we have someone who's coming. So he said, I'm coming to Raasay to stay the night at the distillery in June. Is there a new release before then? Any tip, any length of the ferry quit?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a few things. So we've got it'll be so we've got a bottle of your own. So we're a cask in the distillery shop. You can fill your own bottle. So that's quite special.
Oh,
We've got
hold on before you continue. How far
yeah.
is Raasay from Edinburgh?
So to drive to Skye from Edinburgh is about 5.5 hours, and then it's
Okay.
25 minutes on the ferry. So you can fly to Inverness, and it's a
Yeah,
two and a
so
half hour
yeah,
drive
from
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 Inverness.
because I'm flying into Inverness
Yeah, yeah.
at the end of this month, so I'll be in Inverness. So I'm trying to see if maybe I can take a day trip to come down to Raasay. That's what I'm thinking about in my head right now.
So it's about 2.5 hour drive from Inverness, and then
Okay,
25-minute ferry. So it's
okay.
it's it's doable. It's doable.
No, 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 Noel, you heard him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can bottle your own whiskey when you
On
get
your
there.
own, we've got a couple of releases coming. We've got a collaboration with our Beaky distillery. So they grew barley for us back in 2018, and that's now fully matured. That'll be bottled. I think it might be just slightly later. Might be July time by the time that's out. But there's also we do a special bottling for International Women's Day each year, and one of our team. One of the women in our team picked the cask, and so this year it was Lexi that picked the cask, and it's called the Raasay Lassies, and that's still in the shop at the minute, and that's quite different. That's more of a sherry, more of an Oloroso
Okay,
maturation.
okay. That is. Let's talk about the second expression that is on the U.S. market. Obviously, Noel, I hope it helped. Make sure you subscribe and turn the notification on for more shows that are coming. Hope that helped. Um, I heard of this expression. I never seen it. That's going to be my first time ever having it. The bottle look amazing. The I heard so many good things about it. But before we talk about that expression, I want to play a small video that tells us um, what a little bit about this expression. Just a moment. There you have it. Probably the coolest whiskey video ever. And I don't know who produced that, but that person is good. They're good. They did an amazing job. It makes me, it transports me to the island. It transport me directly to come, to want to come there. So yes, let's talk about I want to say it right, Duncana. Is that right? Is it right?
Yeah, yeah, Duncana. Yeah, so Duncana is the highest point on
So I
Raasay.
heard.
So you
So I
saw it in
heard.
the video. It looks like a little extinct volcano. It's actually basalt. So it came from the lava flows on sky, and as the video says, 66 million years ago, the cooling mountains on Skye were volcanoes, and there was all this lava, and then obviously the ice age, and so Duncana is the highest point, and Dun means a fortress, and Cana was a the legend says it was a Norse prince, so this was his fort, Duncana, but also the highest point of the island, and yeah, and you can see it's quite a sort of quite a different
Oh yeah,
standout, version
I only
Raasay.
got the
And
sample, so I don't I did
I,
see the image of it. Beautiful, beautiful bottle for
that's
all
it.
of you guys.
Yeah,
Because this
no,
expression is your
exactly like
latest
that.
expression on the market, on the US market.
Yeah, yeah. So that you can just see that's the shape of
Yeah,
Duncana there,
yeah.
and so this is quite different from the dram. So this starts life being matured in ex rye
Okay.
casks, and then what we do is we vat those rye casks together, and then we put that vatting into Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez quarter casks. So the quarter casks, the rye casks are obviously American Standard barrels, 190 litres, and then we put them into quarter casks, which is 125 litres. So smaller casks, mixture of Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez sherry, and then that's second maturation in those, and then it's vatted again and bottled at 52 percent ABV. And you can tell by the color it's much
Definitely
darker, much more
definitely
sherry
much
influence.
darker. Yes, indeed. Definitely much darker than the dram. Beautiful,
And
beautiful nose. The nose remind
it's
me
peated.
of chocolate. It remind me of those. I don't know. There is most thing whiskey remind me of dark chocolate, but this is more like white chocolate, like baking chocolate they call it. Like those chocolate are not they're
Yeah,
not like your regular just eating. They use them for fondant they call it to put on your cake.
yeah,
Those That's what it reminds me of. It's much brighter, not darker, but much brighter on the nose. Nice citrus, apples, a little bit of dust of cocoa there. And the peach is not overwhelming at all. At all.
no, the sherry influence really dials the peat down. So if you were to take it to lab, it'd still be about 6 parts per million, phenols in the bottle, but on the palate, on the nose, it's much more muted.
I tell you
It's
what,
really to do with the
for people that like peated whiskey and love cigars, this is the choice. The
yeah,
this done kinda is definitely the choice of the cigar smoker because it has all the sweet element to pair with that smoke because the peat is very regressed. So that smoke is actually gonna intensify those notes.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and there's kind of some sort of nutty notes in there as well, like your salted
yeah.
almonds. There's some kind of dried
Hmm.
fruit, raisins, sultanas,
Hmm.
those sorts of elements, and a bit of just hints of
Hmm.
leather almost in there as well.
Hmm. 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 that finish.
Yeah,
A little, I don't know if I'm crazy, salt. I feel this that
yeah,
finish might be just a little tiny, something a little salty, a
yeah,
little
yeah.
tiny salt.
It's got that kind
Yeah,
of slightly
that
briny.
brine, like
Yeah,
if something was brined for a while and then smoked and baked for a long time,
yeah.
that little, it's it's amusing. It's yeah, it's really it gets your palate entertained. Really, good God,
Yeah, and this is done really well. This is
this
won so many awards. It's done really well, and
this is what I would
and
call
Forbes actually.
the party trick. If you want to trick people in the party, you take this bottle with you because you will trick so many palate because of obviously the different element that hits your palate. You will be confused. This, and I'm assuming these are five, also 5-year-old spirits.
Yeah, it's in that kind of 4 or 5 bracket. Yeah,
This is good. This is good. This is good. I want to have some salmon.
oh yeah,
I want to
hmm
have a fillet of salmon, baked salmon with some capers and lime on top of it. And I want to have a sip of this with that. That's how I'll pair
that's good.
this. Just a fresh sous vide salmon with some capers. Maybe if I want to be very fancy, some caviar at the end of it to give me that saltiness that I want to just
Salty,
get.
yeah.
Ooh, you got my food brain going insane in the head now. It's this is definitely a thought of very in depth, you know, way that it went. But what brought the idea on? Why we went from the six, kind of constructed dram to just taking one part of your operation to put into those PX cask, Oloroso cask, and creating this one. Is it because it's a project that you guys working on to release different type, or is it just something that you really wanted to do based on just creativity?
Yeah, so it started life as an idea for a special release. So obviously the rye casts, as I said before, for the dram, and they're kind of like the real mainstay cast that we use, peated and unpeated. And then we thought, well, if we were gonna do this for a special release, we'll use smaller casks because we want to kind of intensify that the flavour. And then the reason it's Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez is they're very different cherries. So Oloroso is a very dry, nutty, oxidized sherry, and Pedro Jimenez is really a kind of raisin syrup from Pedro Jimenez grapes that's then got grape alcohol added to it. But it's a very rich, syrupy whiskey. So we were taking the kind of dry, nutty, really sweet, fruity, syrupy, and bringing that together again, the balance element of it. And it was such a popular special release. We were like, actually, do you know what? We need to bring this in and make it a regular part of the portfolio. So we've done that, and this is actually the second edition of Duncana. And as I say, it's just won so many awards. At Tokyo Wine and Spirits, it was the best whiskey. We won best distillery as a result of it. Forbes magazine, so London Spirits competition again, best whiskey, best distillery, and Forbes wrote an article saying basically the best whiskey in the world according to London Spirits competition. So we had real accolades from it. So it's definitely here to stay, and there'll be another release later this year of the third edition of Duncana, and those sherry quarter casks were filled at the end of last year and will be emptied round about September time for bottling. So you can see, there's a lot goes into it, but it's definitely makes quite an outstanding.
I have not had any of your unpeated version, so I am gonna have the unpeated one from the Bordeaux cask. While I ask you what I
Yeah,
usually ask every brand at the end of our show is currently you have two expressions on the market, including the different single cask pack that people can buy.
yeah,
What now that you forced me to become a Raasay fan. Now I'm gonna go around and talking about Raasay. Um,
yeah,
especially to my peated whiskey nerds. The question everybody asks is, okay, we've tried the dram, we've tried the Donkana, and we know what's happening. Uh, First question would be, any chance to ever have a standard release? Because now I'm obsessed of the single barrel peated Chicopan single cask. If is there any chance to have that as a standard expression? And second, what is coming next? What are we looking for next? I know that the whiskey is getting older. Things are probably
yeah.
progressing. What should we look forward to as Rass's fan? What should we look forward to?
Yeah, so on the PD Chinkapin, yeah, definitely, as I say, as part of the Nasir series, so that'll be released as a 7-year old next year. So that's definitely one to look out for. The dram said already that's what Rassie's all about. Duncana's there to stay as well. So what we have done is we've done work on other oak species. So um, obviously the Chinkapin is really quite special, but last year we released Quercus Humboldti, so our peated and unpeated spirit fully matured in Quercus Humboldti, which is actually Colombian oak. So Quercus Humboldti only grows in Panama and Colombia in the Andes Mountains. And that was quite special. I've got a bottle over there actually, and now what we've got is a little tasting pack. So these size of bottles, the little 5 cl bottles, and in there you've got the Chinkapin oak, peated Chinkapin oak, peated Colombian oak, but you've also got Quercus petrea, which is one of the European oaks, but from Hungary, and Quercus roba from France. So you've got four different oak
Are you
species
are you a
in a
fan
in a
of
pack.
just different type of oak? Is that why you play with them,
Yeah,
or because you're one of those rare distillers that I know love to play with this different wood and experiment with it?
yeah,
Because for me, it's kind of cool because I always want my whiskey to kind of go through the ringer to see what works best. And you are making some whiskey lovers' dream come true because they're like, I don't want my whiskey to just take one way all the time. And I don't want to buy a full bottle of something new. Maybe an experimental box will work. Maybe then I know my
yeah.
favorite, so I can go and look for that one specifically because it's part of my favorite.
Absolutely. So I studied botany at university, so I'm really
That
fascinated.
makes
That's my
sense. That
fascination with the
makes
oak
sense.
species. So it's like, how is their spirit going to mature in different oak species? So there are 600 different species of oak in the world. There's 500 in the northern hemisphere, and traditionally whiskey has used three. Quercus alba, Quercus two, Quercus roba. So that kind of brought this about. So you can see this pack, and you can see the four different leaves on
Yep,
there,
yep.
hopefully. And then inside you've got little four little bottles like that.
Oh, nice. And is that
And
coming on the
each
US
one of
market?
those, yeah, I think there's some on the
Okay.
way. I think, yeah, pretty sure.
I'll make
Um,
sure to push Impex to make sure that we get this on the US market because I think it's one of those that completely makes sense because it's affordable for you to kind of play with what you want, and finally it gives you that option to to really try and see what happened to the whiskey in all these different casks and push you to actually be at your best. Somebody talked about visiting the distillery. Is your distillery a distillery that people can visit? Is it open to the
Absolutely.
public? And if so, how does that work? What are the operation? I'm in the US, but I know a lot of people traveling to Scotland. I'll be in Scotland at the end of the
Hmm.
month. So is it worth, from the image, it is worth the scene already, but is it a working distillery, and how can people come visit and see
Absolutely,
what's
yeah.
happening?
So definitely a working distillery. If you come to the distillery, you'll see distillation. You'll see the warehouses where it's all matured in Raasay. You'll see the bottling, all the bottlings on site. More importantly, in the distillery, we have 6 ensuite bedrooms, so you can actually stay in the
Oh,
distillery. We have
you
a
can you
bar,
can you can
we have a
stay.
restaurant. You can stay, yeah, yeah, and hopefully by October time this year, we'll have 5 more rooms. So yeah, so you can actually
You know what?
not only stay on the island, you can
I
stay
uh,
in the
I am
distillery.
coming back
Yeah,
in October. I'm coming back to London in
very good.
October. So I need to send you an email. I think I'm gonna
You
come. I'm
do.
gonna come and stay. I'm gonna.
You might be one of the first people to stay in the new
I'll
luxury
be. I'll be back in.
atrium
I'll be in. We probably will see each other at the Whiskey Fest in London in October. But after that, I'm
again. Yeah.
staying for a while. So I wanna come. I wanna see the distillery. I wanna bring the camera and walk around the distillery and really tell people about the experience of staying at a distillery and experiencing peated whiskey. So yeah, I'll definitely make it a thing. I will come.
We'll drop you a note, and not only can you stay, we'll go to the warehouse and open a
Oh
couple of
yeah,
casks
that's
as well.
I've always dreamed about passing the night next to a cask. So this may be my dream come true. But yes, so you guys heard the man. Make Raasay one of your stop as you're actually going through Scotland. I always tell people the best thing about whiskey is not only your palate is traveling through the glass, but it's giving your word or opening up your mind to actually go discover new places. Raasay is doing something different on the market. You know me. If I'm bringing a guest on a show, it's because they're different. They're doing something different. And to just walk into a store and see a bottle and not know anything about it, guess what? It doesn't help. But hopefully, if you're watching this or re-watching this, next time you go to the store and you see this bottle, just know here is the man. These are people behind it. These are family behind this. 162 people in a small town that are making this miracle happen for you. And and if you're a peated whiskey fan and you don't have this in your roster, I don't. I feel sorry for you. You have to have it. Make sure you pick up a bottle if you love peat or even unpeated. Pick up the experiment and just try it. I promise you, there's age doesn't matter. I know people that like single malt always say, "Oh, I want my 15 year, I want my 18 year, I want my 20 year." No, good quality whiskey has nothing to do with age. In the last 3 episodes, I've spoken about that. Good quality whiskey have nothing to do with age. Uh, Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing us that there is still great whiskey being made in Scotland. I cannot wait. I truly cannot wait to see the distillery. Any last word for the U.S. consumers? What would you want the U.S. consumer to know about Raasay, and what can they do to support your brand? Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, again, just thank you so much for allowing me to come on the show and talk about it. I really, really appreciate it. And I think for us, the most important thing, as you say, is people trying the whiskey. But ultimately, if you can make it to Raasay and see how we put it together, stay in the rooms, have dinner with us, have a dram, sit in the residence lounge, look back at Skye, look at those views of the Cooling Mountains, and I think it's an experience. It's a journey to get to Raasay, and you've got to go on the ferry, but it's experience, and we find that everyone who's stayed with us goes away as an ambassador, and there's nothing more powerful than people like yourself and people who have stayed telling the story. I can shout as loud as I want and all the rest of it, but it's when you hear it from someone else that's the most important thing. So, that's really what I would say. We're really keen to get more people to visit Raasay. Really keen to get more people to try the whiskey and tell other people about it.
For all of you guys here, I will urge you, if you're watching right now, the website is displayed here is Raasay Distillery .com, and you can go in and check out every single one of the whiskeys and the Raasay Distillery Raasay whiskey on Instagram as well. You can check them out. I tell you what, if you have any question, if you have anything, I have his email. I will email him and ask, and then he can answer any one of your questions that you may have. Um, Become a Rossi fan. If you like peated whiskey, I promise you, Lagavulin is too expensive. This actually can be a replacement for you, if not better. Make sure you just grab a bottle, give it a try, even if you hate it. Give it a try and tell me you hate it. But at least grab yourself a bottle and give it a try and let me know what you think of it because I truly believe Alistair is doing something amazing bringing this whiskey out, and he deserves all our support. So if you're here, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. And if you're watching the recast, make sure you follow Rossi. And Alistair himself, he's on Instagram himself. Alistair Day, just look it up. He is there, and he'll be more than happy to answer. And thank you so much for if you've been here since the beginning. We appreciate you guys and your support. And again, if you have any questions, send them my way. I'll make sure that Alistair know what is happening. Till then, like we say in Scotland,